Hello,
Mm,
hello. Hmm. Good evening, good morning, good day.
mm. Good to see you. Mm, mm,
Hope folks are
mm.
doing well. Take the time if you like to see who's with us today.
If you want to see everyone on the other page, please look. Mm,
Hope folks have had a chance to see the comet that's out there. It's fading, fading. It's still out there. Hmm. Sometimes that's how our minds feel. Hmm. All right, let's get started. Hmm. So just a reminder for folks who maybe weren't there here last week, we've decided to sit till 8:45 or 2:45 or the quarter of the hour, the 45, just to give ourselves a little more time and take some questions today after that. So settling in as best you can to a seated posture that feels relatively comfortable, stable, supportive. While still inviting energy and alertness, awakeness, letting your eyes gently come to close and gently, slowly beginning this process of attuning to the more receptive dimension of experience and how we can relate to experience rather than the more assertive and doing, externally oriented attention and attending. That sense of putting away our responsibilities as much as possible right now to the world around us, outside of us, trusting in the value of bringing some of these qualities of attentiveness to our inner world, the inner dimension. This often fuzzy line that seems to sometimes separate the two. So it isn't that we lose sense of what we feel like is around us. We still have a direct experience through sound, through the visual impressions, even if our eyes are closed. Sense of the space around us, the happenings around us, the world around us. Of course, parts of our bodies are sensitive to those realities and dimensions as well, the surface of our skin, and sometimes even deeper. Powerful sound can rumble through our bodies. Of course, we have a sense of physicality that is internal, on the underside of the skin. Oh, sometimes that distinction feels unimportant or non-existent. And same with the experience of the mind, of knowing, thinking, imagining. Often has the sense that it's happening inside here, not outside there. We can always wonder about what is it about those sensations that feel internal versus external. Where is the mind happening? Is it happening in place and space at all? Sometimes just this quality of interest, of recognizing that we take certain things for granted. We assume a relationship between inner and outer, mind and body, out of habit, out of common repetition, common knowledge, shared language. But when we close our eyes and start to receive these sensations directly, investigating body, mind, all of the senses, sometimes it gives us new perspective, unhooks us from views, beliefs, ideas that are so concrete and fixed. So we receive the body directly. This elemental nature, earth, air, fire, water, that we experience, this hardness, softness, motion, pressure, coolness and warmth, moisture, dryness, cohesion, distension. You notice this huge range, always changing, increasing pressure, decreasing hardness, increasing heat, decreasing dryness, tingling, pressure, softness. You notice the motion of the breath, beginning in the realm of the abdomen, but influencing all parts of the body, decreasing, falling, easing of pressure back into the realm of the abdomen. Noticing the area we call the head, the shoulders, arms, torso, all through our legs, feet, receiving experiences as we are directly aware of them, not manipulating. We notice the mind's response. We notice the ideas of what we think we're observing, interpretation, analysis, opinions, perspectives, views. Of course, we notice the mind wander elsewhere to the past and future, faraway space. The body still arising and passing in the present moment. Mind may drift, but these sensations are always available right here. That sense of staying connected with the current of change in the body, not needing to go elsewhere. Intrigued by what we encounter, that which feels known and familiar, the closer we look, often comes unfamiliar, unknown. See it freshly. And in this way, the mind is also unhooked from its patterns. Ability to be with the pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, equanimity, ease. When not, we notice what's happening in the heart mind, the resistance, the tension, wanting, not wanting, the aching of the heart. Receive it in the same way that we receive the body, range of textures and tones, always changing, always moving. No need to manipulate or adjust. curious about the nature of these phenomena, and simply trying our best to stay connected, body, when we can, mind, when it arises, becomes predominant, building a relationship with all that's arising and passing away. Interest, kindness, patience, curiosity, no rush. All these things come and go on their own. Just showing up moment by moment, carefully, kindly, with an open mind. Nice to sit with you all as usual. So we will have some time now if anyone has any questions about their practice in ways that we might be able to support, help. The best way to let us know that you have a question is the there's a little button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you move your mouse around that says react, and there, of all the many reactions you can have, there's a button that says raise hand. And that's the easiest way for us to know you have a question. But you can also type into the chat that you have a question or raise your real hand, and we'll keep an eye out for that. Or we can have Michelle give an impromptu Dhamma talk. Spontaneous, unplanned. But I don't think that will happen. Carol, are you saving Michelle? Carol Brophy, yes. Here we go. Let's see, can you unmute there? Hold on.
I'm going to say, I'm
There
not saving you.
we
So I've had a lot of family come in the last 2 or 3 months, getting closure and just, it's something they don't usually do is, well, they never do it. They never come up here. They all live in California. So for those of you that don't know, I live in BC. So one of the things that just happened, I shouldn't say just happened, but was very intense, was my urge to manufacture constructs. So I have had always patterns of avoidance with one of my sisters, the one who was just here, so which is why it's fresh. But what happened was I had the urge to flee, but I didn't do that. I just observed it. But it didn't have any content. And in the past, there's always been content. So that was kind of shocking. The other part that was shocking was the intensity of wanting to make something of it, to make a construct. But it was so incredibly powerful. I just observed it. But I was shocked. That kind
And
of
yeah,
sums it
and
up.
how did it go? What did you observe? How did it
Well,
unfold?
so I didn't I didn't have the intensity of reactions that I would normally have. And like I said before, my impulse was always avoidance and fleeing. And also because I'm the aversion type, if I got pushed too far, I'd say what I thought, which would never be very helpful. And I didn't do that on this visit, which is pretty extraordinary for me. So I guess what I'm saying is I can see that the teachings are helping and that just being here all the time is making an incredible difference. So thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, one way that I can start, and we'll see if Michelle might add. I mean, one way that I think can be helpful to for me to understand that kind of range of experiences that you're having is around. I think we often think that aversion or desire arises in response to like an object of aversion or desire, or that relationship is very like kind of solid and pegged. And I think part of how I interpret, what uh, you're describing is these times where there there is this kind of more like sort of primordial stew in the heart, and that sometimes it's like very tense, and there is anxiety, and there's a desire to flee, or there's a desire to grab onto or defend or whatever it is, and that sometimes it's like you see that the actual pattern, the actual chain of events is different, where there's like a fear that then an instability, an uncertainty, a wanting, a desire, an anger that is looking for an object, and so that you do what you're describing that you have done in the past, which is like, well, there are the familiar objects of anger, of desire, of whatever, fleeing, of all kinds of constructs, of what we then do and pattern behavior. And sometimes it's very powerful to see that the responses in our heart may be influenced by some, like, of course, activity, some conversation, and that we feel those things, but they don't necessarily have to lead to that next moment of like conjuring an object for them to associate with and then kind of get more locked in. And instead you can just be with that, oh, the discomfort, the trembling, the fear, the wanting, whatever it is, right? That like there's a way that you can just kind of hang out in that space and ride it, and as it changes, and that there isn't that need to make something of it, and the amount of like freedom that can provide, yeah, it really is amazing and very. I mean, I think that sense of so verifying, or validifying. It makes you feel like you have. There's a there's a benefit to all of this sitting around.
Validated.
Validation, yeah, it's validated, right? So yeah, I think and then with family of all things, to have that sense of, oh yeah, it doesn't always have to be like A plus B equals C. It's like the equation can sort of just stop, and then you have a lot of room to like, how are you going to behave with this person, and what do you put down, and where do you feel confident in a way that's very easeful, and just sort of some of the stuff that's coming through what you're describing. It's like that's uh, it's wonderful, amazing how much the conditions and the time that it can take for those things to happen, but really beautiful fruit of your practice. Mm.
Mm. I would say that or offer that for those of you who don't know about the comet that's been around a bit after sunset, it hasn't been it hasn't appeared on the Earth for 80,000 years. So it's the first time it's been seen since Neanderthals saw it 80,000 years ago. And it's not going to appear again for 80,600 years.
Ooh.
So it's kind of an amazing in that level, I think. And I was, the first night I saw it, I wasn't really expecting it or knowing about it. But I had a sense of it in terms of Homo sapiens. I had this feeling of like, oh, is the message, what have we learned? Like, is it wondering, is the comment wondering, what have we learned in 80,000 years? And when you were talking, I just had such a beautiful sense of like how much you've learned, Carol. Like I've known you a long time. We've known you. And that feeling of like, look at this is like this fulfillment. I mean, often how we measure our practice is difficult to really fathom it, but that you've had this not only way of relating to yourself, but your sister, which is such a deep karma, and to notice that you didn't fall for the old karma. You didn't pick it up, and that's like at the least such a deeper connection with yourself, and then most likely made space for a different way of perceiving your sister or even relating to her. So it's no small matter, it's something, talk about mudita, like the rejoicing, that can happen is wonderful. Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot lately, so that's great. Yeah.
Mm.
Kristen. Hi there. Let's see if to unmute.
Yeah, wonderful to be with you again. I've had a series of kind of falling off a cliff health moments over the last year and a half or so. And I find that I'm very exhausted all the time. I'm sure you can relate completely, Michelle, and perhaps you too, Jesse, in some way. And I find that I've really lost all interest in formal sitting meditation, like formal meditation practice. I I continue throughout the day paying attention, particularly to the mind and identification in particular. But most of the days I listen to high quality podcasts. I'm not even particularly mindful if it if it takes too much energy. So I feel like I'm still practicing on some level, and I feel like I'm not sure if I'm fooling myself that I feel like a certain level of understanding is still happening. But like I say, I have very little interest in a formal practice, and it's different, than I've experienced before.
Kristen, would you say it's also true in terms of like periods of practice, like doing a retreat or self-retreat or going on retreat, or more sort of in your daily life, there's sort of less interest?
Excuse me. Well, as it happens, my health is such that I can't actually go. I've done a retreat like usually once a year, and I can no longer travel. So I do go to retreats online, but honestly, mostly I'm kind of there for the Dharma talks and the Q&A. Not so much the meditation itself. So I guess it's kind of both daily life and I just don't have any interest in doing a self-retreat. Yeah, so I guess both.
And I know Michelle will have more things to say, but and so then can you say more about like what you feel like is the connection between that disinterest and low energy? It's just because you mentioned them as
Yeah,
being.
there seems to be just such intense exhaustion. I don't know, I don't know what the relationship is, but it seems to have happened during this time of decreasing chi. I'd say, and also one of the most mindful times of my day is when I do qigong. Yeah, so that to me is like a meditation practice. But I do it sitting down. I do it when I have, if I have energy, I would do qigong. I wouldn't do formal meditation practice.
I guess I would say I have so much practice since well, Christian, you know me, Chris, in a lot of my life with illness, but I think like not two bouts of long COVID really helped me with learning how to relate to fatigue. I've just been on 10 days of antibiotics and they knocked me out, so I'm in a fresh place with it, and I guess like my mind goes to a certain things I feel like sound difficult, but actually were very helpful. So there was the time I broke my sacrum, for example. That was a good one. And when I would be doing lying meditation practice, I couldn't lay down for longer than a minute without moving. And I sort of made my bed like a clock. And every minute I'd just move a little bit around and around for the 45 minutes or hour, like just like moving. And it took away that period of practice and teaching like that, remove some kind of obstacle, I think, within myself around how formal practice should be. It's not that there haven't been things that had led up to that, but I think that this the inability to be still was so profound and to have any energy for it. And I'm going somewhere with this because it's like long COVID put another dent in this idea that my mind, that the attention had to be not dull. Like that there was just there was like a vast sea of dullness. Like there was like just dullness. And for so long, and I'm an investigative type on the seven factors part. Like I'm like really on the energized type of the types. And for me to go from what I consider my strength was that kind of interest or investigation you're describing to like completely, utterly dull for months and months and months. I was forced to kind of get these things sound paradoxical, but in a way they're not, to be okay with being uninterested and then a strange way to describe it is interested in being uninterested. So, but I'm not connecting this to formal practice at all, but I'm trying to describe the level to which tiredness and exhaustion affects the attention. You know, and so for me, for example, the last few days, I remember writing Jesse a text that a while ago, it was like, I have no Vitaka, Vichara, Vitaka, Vichara. I have no Vichara, that ability to sustain the attention. And then recently it was like, I have no Vitaka or Vichara. And that means that there's, like, I'll be looking for the thermometer that I was wanting to put in my mouth to check for a fever last night. And it's like, I knew where I had put it, I thought, but it's just not there, and it's the level of like not being concentrated is so profound. And I find that my practice is a lot about accepting this. Like it's just like the acceptance, the acceptance, the acceptance, and not taking it personally. And that I feel like there's so much practice going on, but it's not at all looking like it used to. So like to me, what you're describing, who knows what's going to happen? It could be that a year from now, there'd be a way that you kind of incline that way again. Maybe it won't even be dependent on energy, but certainly I think, I'm just being honest. Like when I lay down, because that's what I've needed with the exhaustion to practice, I'm often watching um, the unclear thought thinking. It's not thought, when you're starting to get sleepy and thought gets very different, like it's odd, it's weird, and that has become a huge part of my practice, for example. And that might now sound weird, but it's gotten great. It's like, okay, like I'll just watch how it goes from clear thinking to unclear thinking to sleep, and then wake up and watch that process. And it feels like great practice. So I'm not saying that's all that happens, but I'm trying to describe how um, knowing you, that I would guess that your practice is so rich that most people would describe off the pillow, right? Like the on the pillow, the off the pillow, but that um, it's not like you're not paying attention, right?
Right, like I am paying attention particularly to what arises in the mind, throughout the day. So it's like as the day goes by, I am paying attention in that respect. My concentration in general is not the greatest, and so yeah, it's like I do fall off very quickly when I'm doing the formal practice, but I notice when aversion and wanting and identification arises, in the mind. throughout the day, not every moment, but in important moments. But I think, am I fooling myself, or am I being am I being complacent when I think that it does feel like a rich practice in many respects, because I do feel like that there's a certain level of a deep level of compassion that's happening, and to some extent, a level. Well, I think the insight and the compassion have to go together. So I feel like that's happening, but it's just so different. I mean, not that I had a really concentrated formal practice before. It just wasn't my strong point. But yeah, it's that knowing whether what I think maybe is going on, or if I'm fooling myself. And I think about, well, should I be putting in more effort? And I really, I'm just not there.
What's it like? What's it like when you lay down to go to sleep, or like at the sitting today, like when you lay down? What's it like?
Usually a lot of thinking comes up, just random thinking that I pay better attention to the thinking when I'm not trying to meditate than when I am.
Hmm. I have one more thing to say, which is one of the gifts that I took in very early on in learning Vipassana. A real deep gift is that um, the mindfulness appearing does not have to depend on a buildup of concentration. And this is like so important for all of us, especially people who do get more concentrated and then have many opportunities in a lifetime to lose it. Like the awakened mind, moment to moment, if you've cultivated a lot of mindfulness and you have that intention, it's not dependent on a buildup of concentration. And it can't, like in formal practice, when we go deep in practice, one can see the effect of a buildup of it, and we can get attached to that. But it is not a cause for that moment to moment, off the pillow mindfulness. And so if you're seeing yourself disidentify, I would be careful of doubting that. Or if you're like not getting caught in aversion, I would be very careful of doubting that, because this is not dependent on sitting for an hour. It's dependent on the mindfulness appearing, right? There's not a cause factor there in this case. So I would be careful of doubting it. I think so much of this that I've seen as I'm getting older and dealing with health issues, or with others that are having health issues, so much of it is accepting. And then, I had someone ask me a question today, very busy person. This person knows that it would be better if they weren't working so hard, right? Knows that in his bones, but he's not stopping. And he asked me, well, where's my compassion? Where's my compassion for myself? And I was like, okay, well, we know that when you get tireder and tireder and tireder, that there's not enough energy. If your karmic knot is self-hatred, I'm like, but ultimately, it's not my compassion, right? It's not mine. It's like making the space for the conditions for compassion to arise is what it's about, right? And it's like if you're tired, you have to put more time into making space for that, right? And that's what I feel like you've done most of the years I've known you, which are a lot. You know, it's like you've made more and more and more and more space for the appearance of compassion.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Right. So it's not yours, but you've cultivated it. And it's again, it's something the cause is the intention. The cause is the making space for it. And so the momentum, the momentum for all of us, you know, the momentum of doing a Sunday sit every week, there's a momentum to it. There's a momentum to practice that what Carol just described with her sister. There's a momentum that if you keep at it, um, it's there for us at times. As much as I don't like exhaustion, it's been a great teacher for me because I was so attached to energy. Great teacher. Continues to be. It's not personal. It's totally not personal. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I think, Kristen, I'm curious of like where do you feel like do you feel how do you feel about your progress towards enlightenment?
Well, that's a little bit difficult
I mean,
question to answer.
I'm trying to understand like your sense of do you feel any sense of urgency or any sense of or do you feel satisfied with kind of like where your practice is and that this is enough what you're doing?
Well, I guess I wonder if it's enough. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like I say, like the compassion and the insight continues to happen. Um, yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
And I get just I think the last kind of question
I'm not,
is your approach right now, do you feel like it's influenced by like a more formal set of teachings around this as an approach, as a method?
can you
Like
say that again?
yeah, like do you like like say at a Utejaniya we'll talk more about just being aware of mind and not being so concerned maybe with some of what you might be calling formal practice or the concentration aspect of it, of just the sort of knowing of what's happening.
Yeah, I'm at the moment I'm having kind of a brain fog
Hmm.
moment. Um, I guess part of that uh, with urgency, I think you mentioned urgency.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like, we're all getting closer to death, but I feel like death feels much closer, and I think is. So I feel some urgency in that respect. But I don't feel like a real, I'm neither satisfied nor dissatisfied with, I don't know, there's a certain malaise.
Hmm.
I just, because I'd say I haven't, well, I found a way of working with such a level of exhaustion, but I guess it's not what I'd really want.
Yeah. I mean, I think just in addition to what, Michelle has already offered, it's like our practice just change over time for sure, and that there are periods where it may look very different than other times. There's periods where we may not be able to do formal practice for various reasons. Among those that you described or Michelle was talking about, I mean, there can be all kinds of reasons, or just too busy, or I think what you're describing, the difference of what you're describing is you're not interested in it, which is different than not being able to. I mean, a few times it's like you're not wanting to work with the sleepiness, like you just said, but that's really the only time you've said that, right? That it's like an aversion to sleepiness. Mostly what you've offered is like you're just not interested. And that is, I do think that there is something to be suspicious of in that for you. That I think we would be remiss if we weren't offering the possibility that, like, yes, you definitely should be making more effort, and like, yes, you're definitely kidding yourself, as we all are, right? I mean, that is what we do. Is like we kid ourselves about like the effort that we're making and what we should expect from that. So with the giant caveat that, like, yes, you might be in a time where it's like this feels like a more appropriate approach to the practice, and that you're clearly doing the less the what you're I don't even know if I agree with the language about less formal, but because it sounds like you are very invested in trying to be as mindful as possible all day long with what's happening in body and your mind, and also the cultivation of these, the Brahma Viharas and beautiful qualities. So it's like, I don't think that there's any sense of doubt in my mind, or I'm sure in Michelle's mind, of hearing that sense of integrity. And I think it's worth trying to understand more what's happening versus saying you should sit more or you shouldn't sit more, because whatever we tell you, you're going to do whatever you do. I'd say that the question of what is it that is not interesting, and what is it about the practice, what is the fuzziness and the lack of clarity, right? I mean, there's all the things you describe have, and it's part of where lack of energy also arises in relationship to it, are part of how we describe aspects of delusion. Those are the language of it, right? The uncertainty, the doubt, the the way disinterest plays in, the way non-investigation, right? It's like mindfulness. The opposite is obliviousness, right? And so it's like you can see that these are forces that are alive in all of us, and you're actually, perhaps there's a sense that it's like, yes, these are powerful forces that you're able to actually see. But the question of how much they should be directing our actions is always an important one, right? That there is another perspective that's like you should sit no matter what you want to do, right? That you don't sit because you want to sit or because we enjoy it or because but that it's like that's why it's a practice. So we do it as a commitment and as as something we know we cannot trust our minds to decide for us, right? That there is something that we are going to resist in that. And so that it could be that you're actually at a place of like very important insight that you don't want to miss, right? The pressure of this force in your own heart and mind is growing, and that is like an opportunity, that you're experiencing. And you'll see, what you end up doing. I think the part about coming for the Dharma talks and the Q&As, I think that is also poignant. you know I mean, I do feel like it's I think it's not just you. I mean, I think that um, we love giving talks and we love doing Q&As and this process, and it's like it feels like a very, of course, rich part of the Dhamma. But it's always about people's own practice. And I do think this is a slight aside, but I feel like it's worth noting, that you know there's 47 people here now, right? It's like beautiful, it's wonderful. And a year ago, there's probably 30 more people on at this point, you know? And we've had to travel, the sort of dynamic has changed. But one of the main things that's changed is we're not giving as many talks, right? That we're doing more Q&As. And we know that that requires actually a little bit more kind of engagement from folks. It's not able to just sort of like be kind of receiving and um, entertained, I think, is sometimes what is the the dynamic that can get set up. And it's interesting, it is interesting to see that. I mean, there may be many other reasons, of course, why that type of thing is happening, and we're always happy with like whoever shows up and whoever's practicing. I mean, but I do think that we all have that. I mean, I bring it up only to say that it's not just you, Christian. It's like this is part of the sort of ambiance, the environment that we're in of like our attention, and how taxed it is and how tired we are and how busy we are and where we choose to dig in, and where are we, spending our energy and where are we conserving it. And I think that sense of like there are times where yes, we have to we're so exhausted for any number of reasons that we have to conserve our energy even in terms of practice, right? Definitely. Um, and I think that there is like this it's like we have to just keep checking in about it. It's like, okay, this happens for a month, it happens for a few months, it happens for 6 months, it happens for a year. How many years go by and no sitting? I, I think it would be hard to say that that feels like we wouldn't want to like work with you more, you know, intimately, more closely about like what's happening, and what is going on there. So I would just say that's like I think the question is very powerful, and that sense of like are you interested in the disinterest, as Michelle was saying, um, because that feels important more than counting how many minutes we sit on the cushion and how many minutes we're mindful in our sort of daily lives. I mean, that isn't helpful, right? To get that kind of like nurtured, but it's like, are we interested in the disinterest? Is ultimately going to be the most important thing. Yeah, Michelle.
I just want to add a little bit more into that, which is from what I'm noticing with people that are older and have health issues, that if the formal practice is making one want to do less practice, or that would be a time to wait. I feel like if it backfires, like that, if the interest is in the moment to moment experience outside of the formal, I think what is interesting is how is that unfolding, but to trust it a bit, to trust that if with formal practice one is actually not liking the practice anymore or getting really de-energized from the practice, really de-energized, like after 45 minutes of laying down, if you're actually exhausted, more exhausted, and not wanting to practice when you get up, all those things are things to pay attention to and are possible. That's what I'm hearing from people. And so I think that what's critical is if, like, if one goes for a walk and that's where the insight, I'm not saying that's what's happening for you, Kristen, but say somebody has told me that out when they go for a walk, that's where the juice is, that's where the energy is, that's where the investigation is going to happen. It's very important to trust that. And so I think I would lean that way, Kristen, and trust it. I think that what Jesse's saying is also important, in that if it goes on and on and on, and like for me, it would be more like laying down for 10 minutes rather than 45 and trying it, or 5 minutes, or trying to see if there was an inclination that way over time, to see what would happen. If that's why I asked you what happens when you lay down to go to sleep, or for Sunday sittings, there's a level to which there might be a sense store to pay attention to, or like something that will, for me, it was non-identification with dullness. I'm not kidding. It was like, that sounds pretty
That's a good
dull.
one. That's a good one.
No, but it's really been, in, the whole point is that I was identified with dullness. And
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and so that's like, I think what Jesse's saying is that I'm trying to act that out, which is like, and I'm trying to say that that's like the hardest thing for me, because I hated dullness, right? And so that's what I mean, that I do think that toward the end of one's life, one gets stuck with all this stuff that one avoids somehow. And this is the big one for me. And I can actually describe, I can feel it in the back of my neck. This dullness starts, and then it's like this all-pervasive dullness. And it's like, um, I'm I'm laughing about it because it's so bad, it's funny, right? So it's and that's like, Jesse, what I'm saying is that for some people, like lying there for 45 minutes with all pervasive dullness and you're identified with it, it's usually going to backfire, like at some point. So it's like finding, um, if I go out on my little steps and the the most feral cat comes, and I watch her for a while, and I watch the wind or something, that'll enliven it a bit. And so that's also important. I don't know if I'm making sense to everyone at this point, because I think that what's tricky is the longer you practice and the older you get. I agree, Jesse, that we need the fine tuning gets more and more important. And I'm really glad you asked this, because it's vulnerable, and it's like we all need fine tuning.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, we all need it. Thanks. Well, I hope everybody's anxiety levels with the election situation are under control. Take care.
Wait here. I'll do the last. The best pictures seem to be coming out of Hawaii for some reason. Where I am not at, but Michelle has been seeing some version of this.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
The first 3 days, but now it's a big blur in the sky. But yeah, that's not where I am. But that's Venus under the palm tree, the Venus, yeah. And that's Arcturus over far on the right, low. Yeah, there's down below to the right, all the way over up
That?
no, up the hill there. See that little spot? That's no, keep going. Almost to the down to the right.
Oh, I'm not seeing the whole picture. Hold on.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
there. Yes,
Yeah,
that
that's
is Arcturus.
Arcturus.
Yes.
And then, so the comet, if you're trying to find it here, is between Venus and Arcturus. But
That's
that's
some
not,
days ago. Now it's a
yeah,
little
that's
higher.
actually last Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So now it's way up high and it's, if you're using your naked eye, it looks like a big blur in the sky, but yeah.
Where I am, you cannot see it with the naked eye, but with binoculars, you can still see it. About an hour after sunset in the western sky, it's kind of getting higher and higher and a little fainter and fainter. But yeah,
That looks much further south than me right now. Yeah. Lucky us. Good luck.
Take care, everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.